the meeting of Transportation Environment Committee for December 2nd to order at 1:30 p.m. Let's start with roll call, please.
Present.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just a reminder on the work plan, we dropped the microgrid status report from at the November 13 Rules Committee meeting, so no actions required there. There's nothing on consent. We're being asked to move item 4, the San Jose Power Status Report, to the beginning of our agenda, just because we have a lot of visitors here and we want to let them get back to their day. So we're going to start with item 4 and kick it off with Kip.
Thank you very much, Council Member Chair Cohen. Kip Harkness, Deputy City Manager. I'm actually going to turn it over to Erica Garafo to start and then be back with you toward the end of the presentation.
Good afternoon, committee members, chair, and members of the public. Erica Garafo, Lead Resilient Strategist with the City Manager's Office. On October last year, the City Council unanimously voted to amend the municipal code and create a municipal electric utility to establish the legal framework for the city's authority to generate, purchase, and distribute electricity. In the same action, the council directed staff to explore the possibility of establishing San Jose Power to provide electrical service in select areas of the city. The council directed staff to consider 4 key questions as a guide to the exploratory phases. If the city were to provide municipal utility for electric service in limited areas of the city, could that be done in a way that would reduce electricity energy costs for San Jose Power customers, allow the development of more innovative and energy efficient buildings? Would it increase the electrical resilience of the city of San Jose and our critical infrastructure for both climate change and emergency response? And lastly, would it enable us to attract and retain the skilled, trained, and talented workforce required to perform this work effectively and reliably? To answer these questions, staff is evaluating the infrastructure needs and developing and evaluating a business case, staffing plan, and financing strategy for a potential municipal electric utility. San Jose Power startup costs fall primarily into 4 categories: electricity generation, transmission interconnection, electrical distribution, and staffing consultant costs. Staff have been in discussions with potential partners about the possibility of a customer or developer financed approach, with an initial developer customer taking on the costs for building out the needed infrastructure and funding the ongoing operations and maintenance of the utility through electrical rates. Starting with the first, electricity generation costs would include costs to procure the power. For the transmission interconnection costs, the developer or customer would cover all of San Jose Power's upfront transmission interconnection costs. The developer or customer would cover the cost of building facilities that could scale in the future to also serve nearby future load. For the electrical distribution infrastructure, San Jose Power will likely follow a typical model where a developer or customer funds and builds the distribution infrastructure and then turns it over to the utility. This approach gives the developer or customer greater input and control over infrastructure build-out and timeline. The developer customer focused approach reduces the risk of San Jose Power constructing infrastructure that might become stranded if the development doesn't proceed. This model pushes the risk to the developer customer, who has better control over when to build distribution infrastructure to support their development. The developer customer would also cover city staff costs plus consultants during the initial build out and in future phases. Switching gears, I want to explain a little bit about why this moment in time is particularly ripe to exploring San Jose Power. There are 2 new high voltage transmission lines that are approved by the California Independent Systems Operator, or CAISO, which present an opportunity to establish a utility with lower transmission costs. CAISO is a nonprofit that oversees 27,000 miles of transmission lines in California, and they manage the flow of electricity across these high voltage, long distance power lines. Recently, CAISO staff identified the urgent need for even more electricity in the San Jose area. They updated its transmission plan to propose doubling LS Power's project to 2,000 megawatts of transmission capacity. The CAISO board approved this mid-cycle change just this past November 12th, thereby increasing the capacity of the 2 LS Power constructed lines for a total of 2,000 megawatts. The first transmission line runs through North San Jose, coming down from Fremont to Santa Clara on a path that trenches right past the regional wastewater facility. The second line runs from Metcalf in Coyote Valley north to downtown San Jose. Both lines will be constructed between 2026 through 2028, with expected energization around mid to late 2028. The City of San Jose filed 2 interconnection requests with LS Power, one for North San Jose and one for downtown San Jose, each for 250 megawatts. These requests will allow staff to understand the transmission infrastructure costs and begin reserving access to the transmission infrastructure and any additional capacity as appropriate. Connecting directly to the transmission lines could allow the city to enhance reliability and reduce San Jose Power's startup infrastructure costs. The first potential area focuses on a limited portion of North San Jose on and adjacent to the San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility. The North San Jose transmission line, with 250 megawatts of power reserved for San Jose Power, presents an opportunity to potentially power private development and critical infrastructure on regional wastewater facility land, and catalyze economic development on land owned and leased out by the regional wastewater facility. Critical infrastructure in this area that San Jose Power might serve includes the regional wastewater facility itself, as well as current and expanding the recycled water system and a build out of a new direct potable reuse purified water facility, which would provide diverse water supply to meet growing regional needs. The reserved transmission capacity, 250 megawatts, could also be available for commercial and industrial developments focused on economic development lands. The San Jose Santa Clara Regional Wastewater Facility Plant Master Plan identifies 159 acres of economic development lands for new industrial, manufacturing, office, research and development, and retail uses. Many of these uses have high demands for electricity. Powering these developments through San Jose Power could offer a cost advantage with potentially lower electricity prices, making the area more attractive to businesses and potentially incentivizing a more rapid development and build out of this area. The successful development of these economic development lands would provide ongoing lease revenue to the regional wastewater facility, reducing costs for ratepayers, and would also provide an ongoing source of revenue in the form of property taxes and utility taxes to the city's general fund. So scooting down south, the second potential service area in downtown San Jose, with an additional 250 megawatts of capacity allocated for San Jose Power, offers strategic opportunities to serve critical infrastructure, including San Jose Mineta International Airport and potentially Diridon Station. As key transportation hubs, both facilities would stand to gain from the potential increased reliability and cost savings associated with San Jose Power. For instance, transitioning the airport's electricity service to San Jose Power could enhance its operational resilience while lowering costs, an advantage particularly valuable as the city expands electric vehicle charging infrastructure and other energy-intensive services at the airport campus. A primary challenge in downtown San Jose, however, lies in the spatial constraints. The dense urban setting limits available land for new infrastructure, posing challenges for establishing necessary interconnection components. Staff is currently in discussion with a potential developer customer in both North San Jose and downtown. A potential next step could be a mutual cooperation agreement with a preferred developer or customer to take staff's feasibility assessment through the next level of due diligence. Under a mutual cooperation agreement, the potential developer would be granted an exclusive opportunity to develop an agreement to launch San Jose Power to serve their developments. The developer or customer would reimburse the cost of the feasibility assessment work undertaken under the mutual cooperation agreement. This work would likely include evaluating the specific infrastructure needs and further developing and evaluating a business case, staffing plan, and financing strategy necessary to serve the developments, and a path for the city to successfully launch a municipal electric utility. I'm going to hand it over to Kip to finish out the presentation.
Thank you, Erica. Kip Harkness again, Deputy City Manager. At the October 2023 meeting, Council requested that staff continue working with IBEW and PG&E as key stakeholders as we advance the exploratory phase of this work that Erica just described. I want to take a few minutes to discuss our engagement with each of these valuable stakeholders, and given the importance of these discussions, I'm going to actually invite each of them to come up in turn and present to you directly so that you can engage with them beyond just the normal public comment, because what they have to say is extremely important to the decisions that we're going to make. I'm going to start with IBEW. Since October last year, we've met periodically with IBEW to discuss a range of topics. The Energy Department continues to engage with labor stakeholders, including IBEW 332 on long-term power purchase agreement project selection criteria. Separately, the city plans to meet with IBEW on potential building electrification workforce development programs, and the city manager's office has met with IBEW twice to understand their perspective on the city's exploration of this municipal electric utility, especially concerning staffing. The city plans to continue meeting with IBEW to gather their feedback as we refine the San Jose Power Opportunity Analysis, again, especially as regards to staffing. So what I'd like to do is I would love to invite up Hunter Stearns with IBEW 1245 to present his perspective on the work that we're doing and share any concerns and perspective that he has directly with you all. Hunter?
Assistant Business Manager, IBEW Local 1245. Myself and Javier Casillas of IBEW 332 have been meeting with Mr. Harkness. Everything he described about the opportunities for training and worker development, we fully support, 1245 fully supports. That's more in 332's bailiwick, and they all obviously represent workers here at the city. What I wanted to express on behalf of 1245 is the work that our members do, as well as the engagement thus far with the city. We've appreciated talking with the city, working through these issues, expressing our views and our concerns, and those meetings have been both helpful, they've been clear, and with great candor, probably at times too much candor. But it's been useful to understand how the city and what the city is interested in doing. So IBEW 1245 represents utility workers. Our members work for PG&E here in San Jose, but in the city of Santa Clara, your neighbor, we represent the workers at the municipal utility there. We represent workers at 9 other municipal utilities in Northern California. We also have workers that do electrical work for 4 other cities and about 15 other what we call publicly owned utilities of various types throughout the Northern and Central California. They're as far north as Ukiah and as far south as Lompoc in Santa Barbara County, and we have people as far up in Modoc County as well. So we've got thousands of members that work for municipal utilities throughout Central and Northern California. We also have thousands of members that work for PG&E. In our mind, utilities are as good as their leadership and their organization. We support and work with our employers, but because there are significant differences in the status of employment between a public utility and a private or investor-owned utility, we have an ongoing position of status quo. If you're receiving your retail electric service from PG&E, we want you to continue to do that. If you're receiving it from a municipal utility like the city of Santa Clara or the city of Alameda, we want you to continue to do that. Any change harms our members working on one or the other. In other words, if the city of San Jose goes through with its existing plans, harm not great, but some harm will come. But the changes and the most serious objection that 1245 has had to the city's actions thus far is a change to the municipal code that permits the city to effectively take over or municipalize PG&E's assets and infrastructure. And doing so would put almost 1,000 of our members working here in San Jose out of work, potentially, or at the very least, have them transferred somewhere that they may not want to go. But the real problem comes, and people always say, well, somebody needs to stay here and do the work if that's the case. And the answer is yes, but there's great incentive for workers to stay with the kind of employer they have. In the case of PG&E, ERISA in particular, there's wages, but particularly changes in benefits would harm our members. And ERISA does not allow for their retirement plans and benefit plans to be transferred to a public sector plan. And the same is true in the reverse. So we strongly urge people not to take that type of action. I'm well aware, and we've had clear conversations with Mr. Harkness about the city's interests, but unfortunately there is no limit in how the city is exploring the new, what I call greenfield approach to electric utility service. There's no limit on what the city can do. And that, whether it's this council or a future council, and that puts our members at risk. We're aware of the discussions, although not very well aware, but we're aware of the discussions that have come up, and I don't want to steal too much of the thunder of PG&E and Mr. Harkness about the MOU concept, but this is something that would work well for 1245 members. They could continue to work here. There are 3 large yards that serve the city of San Jose and its residents and businesses, PG&E workers, 1245 members, and that would allow them to continue to do what they do and allow the city to meet the goals and objectives that it has in terms of service today and tomorrow and into the future, the reliability, the resiliency, and the supply of electricity that you need to grow. And with that, I do appreciate the opportunity to speak, and we're happy to come back and give our views anytime you want to hear them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to turn our attention now to PG&E. And over the past year, we have been deepening our partnership with PG&E across a range of different initiatives. And recently, PG&E, in coordination with the City Manager's Office, has proposed the development of a memorandum of understanding for cooperation on the economic development of downtown and North San Jose through the timely construction of electrical infrastructure required to support development in those areas and meet the city's decarbonization goals. The MOU is currently in draft form and being developed very rapidly. It would commit us to providing commit PG&E and us to providing competitive terms, including greater certainty and higher speed for interconnection. The city continues to engage with PG&E on a regular basis, including standing monthly meetings, and we will solicit their feedback on our continued exploration of a municipal electric utility. The MOU could impact the desirability of moving forward with this utility, and so the final draft of the MOU, along with the results of the San Jose Power exploration, will come back to Council for their consideration, perhaps in the March special meeting, perhaps sooner, depending on the time frame. I would like to invite up a trio from PG&E, Michael Medeiros, Teresa Alvarado, and Christina Ramos to join us. And if you, probably for convenience sake, if you could join us in the box. And we'd love to hear your perspective, concerns directly to the council, and then we'll wrap up and then go to public and council for questions. Michael, Teresa, and Christina, it's all yours.
The red means it's on. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, council members, and Chair Cohen, and I just want to take this moment of privilege to thank Councilmember Davis as well. I know you're terming out, and it's been a privilege working with you these past 8 years in and out of City Council. I'm Christina Ramos, Senior Government Affairs for PG&E now in this new role for the past 2 years, and San Jose is our largest service territory within our whole service territory of Northern California. Over the past year, PG&E and the city has made some substantial progress of partnering together for the success of each other's goals. And I've had a front row seat to the progress we are making, and am excited to be here with my colleagues, both Mike Medeiros, our Vice President of South Bay Delivery, and Teresa Alvarado, Regional Vice President of PG&E. We together have worked side by side with the city to make progress in sharing the successes of PG&E in order to build, invest, and we have plans that we want to share with you that are going to be building on our successes that we've had today and for the years to come. And so I am going to let Teresa Alvarado take it away.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Let's see, do I have to hit a button?
There we go. Thank you so much. Also, again, thank you, Councilmember Davis and Chair Cohen, but also thanks to staff for inviting us to be a part of the conversation. I think Kip has mentioned that we've had many conversations this year and really, I think, developed a different relationship, and we're excited to tell you about it. So, 3.5 years ago, we established the regional service model where we had a senior leader in every region. We have 5 regions at PG&E now, and the purpose was to work closely with our operating partners and our safety partners to deliver for our hometowns and really have a much more localized approach to our work. As Christina said, I lead the South Bay and Central Coast region. Since that time, my coworkers and I have really focused on the daily delivery of gas and electric service to our customers locally, my hometown of San Jose included, on the designing, improving of the grid to meet the growing energy needs of our customers, on optimizing a more resilient grid, and that serves the economic development goals that you envision and the residents of our community deserve. So Mike is going to talk a little bit about the proposal for expanding our grid to support planned growth in San Jose, but I'd love to just share with you some data points from this year in terms of what we have accomplished. Mike's team was established earlier this year to really address the acute needs of our largest hometown of San Jose, and he created a command center located in downtown San Jose, which is focused on the data that we're tracking so that we can make sure that we are meeting our goals and our targets. But some of the accomplishments that we have achieved this year is launching the first ever large load cluster study. We think it's the first one a utility has done, where we have collectively studied data center load coming into North San Jose. The study is helping us to understand the load demands, and it will result in an optimized build-out of the system to serve the load when it is needed and at the lowest total cost to our customers, as well as, the direct customers and our overall customer base. We also filed a new large load transmission tariff just last week, I believe. It's Rule 30, which your team has probably been tracking, Kip. We, again, believe that's the first one that has been submitted in the nation. Once approved, it will clarify cost responsibility and will streamline the process currently required to negotiate agreements and get CPUC approval, which will be helpful for large load customers like data centers. We've also executed an MOU with West Bank for the creation of a net zero community in downtown San Jose. You've probably heard of that. It will also be anchored by 200 megawatts of data centers and support the heating and cooling of 4,000 plus units of housing in San Jose. Mike will talk a little bit about some of our other infrastructure, but one of the things that I thought was really innovative was the joint meeting hosted by Kip and by Mike, which was a problem-solving session about 200 areas of opportunities where we can improve the permitting process together. It was a great facilitated meeting, and we've identified several opportunities for us to work jointly over the coming weeks and months and years. Hopefully it won't take that long. And then finally, one other real highlight is over the last year, last year or 2 years ago, we had a heat wave, a summer heat wave, and we experienced terrible reliability in San Jose. This year, we had an extended 8-day heat wave, and we saw significant improvement. We really focused, when we knew the weather was coming, we proactively swapped out some of our equipment, and we saw a tremendous improvement of reliability for our customers in San Jose, and hopefully the lack of complaints to you really reinforced that. In terms of new business connections, as of November, we have completed 802 new business jobs and 4,869 meter sets in San Jose this year. These are new customers that have been served and energized. We've installed 16 EV supercharging sites with 170 total chargers, delivering 19.3 megawatts of power for EVs. Our team has reached a project satisfaction score of 8.6 out of 10. Those really, we think, are the daily and weekly attention that we're focused on how to deliver for our customers on time, what they need, when they need it. We're also very cognizant and tracking and shepherding sensitive projects. This year, we have engaged in a number of them: Supermicro, Stack Infrastructure, Kaiser Hospitals Rebuild, Core Companies, VTA. We're having monthly meetings now with these sensitive customers to make sure that we stay on track, that we're in sync, we're identifying and able to address any issues that are coming up. And as we near the end of 2024, our team really has been working tirelessly to connect thousands more new customers to the grid in 2024 compared to last year. And that work, enabled by SB 410, the Powering Up Californians Act, could only be accomplished with the permitting support and partnership of city staff. So I just really want to thank our partners at the city for helping us to not only meet our customers' needs for new service, but accelerating California's electrification efforts and powering your economic development goals. Very quickly, capacity. We have done a significant amount of new capacity work throughout the city. Councilmember Cohen, particularly in your area in North San Jose, we're happy to share more with you directly if you like, but we've done a lot of work at our Montague substation, the circuits that are coming from Montague substation, and Zanker Road capacity projects. And then in terms of reliability, I just want to highlight two projects quickly. Late last year, we completed a critical project to separate the circuits serving Santa Clara Valley Medical Center and O'Connor Hospital at the El Patio substation in San Jose. Our crews trenched and installed new cable within the El Patio substation to reroute our electric facilities and separate the two hospitals from being on the same feeder. The swap means that we'll have improved reliability by reducing the likelihood of both hospitals being affected by an outage. And then just in October of this year, we launched our pre-construction activities in the Almaden Valley area on our Hicks 2101 project to improve reliability for those customers. Because the line that currently serves those customers in a neighborhood, suburban neighborhood, goes through a Tier 1 high fire risk area, the residents in that neighborhood have been impacted by enhanced power line safety settings. So this project is going to reroute the circuit through a new underground mainline section along Almaden Expressway, which will significantly improve reliability of 4,940 customers in Almaden Valley. We've obviously been a big civic investor in San Jose for decades. Just this year, I think a few of the big ones that I wanted to just comment on were the Veterans Day Parade, Christmas in the Park, San Jose Jazz, and we're really proud to play a role in those really important civic events. In addition to the infrastructure and civic investments, we are preparing a roadmap for workforce development, and we are developing a demonstration facility in our downtown San Jose office that will showcase the path to net zero so that all segments of our community can learn about how to make the transition and play a tangible role in the clean energy transition. Finally, just last month, we hosted our second PG&E Innovation Summit here in San Jose. Artificial intelligence applications for utilities were a major focus of the summit. Our CEO, Patty Poppe, kicked off the summit, highlighting an exciting proposal that reimagines how data centers can support housing, which I mentioned our partnership with the mayor, with West Bank, and with Plug and Play. And then I think what's really important about that is it shows how we are understanding the challenges that are ahead and leveraging each other's expertise, partnership, and it really is embedded by a trust that we have started to develop between our organizations that I think will bode well for us in the future and really help us to meet California's electrified and decarbonized future. Thank you very much. And now over to Mike Medeiros.
So good afternoon. Thanks for the time. As Teresa said, we've made great progress, but we agree that there's more that we could do to meet the city's aggressive economic development goals. We understand the city's interest in attracting new load and the tax benefits and the economic growth that it brings to the city. PG&E wants to be the partner with the city to meet those economic development needs in a timely manner and help grow the economy here in the South Bay and San Jose. City staff has expressed concerns with our ability to deliver infrastructure on time and at the scale needed to meet the city's aspirations, and we acknowledge those concerns. For the last 5 to 7 years, our focus, both from resources and financial, has been to address the acute wildfire risk in our service territory. But with that said, we are focused on the success of the hometowns we serve and are looking to do something different here in San Jose to demonstrate our commitment to meeting your needs. That is, to make firm commitments and to meet specific deadlines on when we'll deliver infrastructure to meet the city's goals. One example of this is PG&E's decision to rebuild Substation A. This will allow PG&E not just to serve the West Bank Net Zero community, but also to support other future developments such as Downtown West, Diridon Station, new rail service such as BART, VTA, J. Paul, and future building and fleet electrification projects. We've also been working closely with the city staff on a proposal, the MOU, to advance new grid infrastructure that would deliver power to new, large industrial and commercial facilities in North San Jose and the downtown area. This proposal is included in the MOU that the city staff has referenced before. Foundationally, California investor-owned utilities' business model is to build infrastructure only after customers submit an application for service. As San Jose is preparing for rapid growth of tech and AI, city staff has been upfront with their concerns about the electric capacity needed to serve these new large loads and have been vocal about needing the timely build-out of our infrastructure to entice economic growth in San Jose. The anticipated growth in electric demand in San Jose is unprecedented. I mean, for 30 years, we've had no growth in California, and now it's significantly increased. And we recognize that we need to take an unprecedented approach to prepare for the growth. Waiting until we receive applications for service to build infrastructure is not going to meet your needs. So over the past several months, we've discussed a proposal that will allow PG&E to start building out the grid to support those economic development projects that will allow the city to confidently recruit new businesses to the area. PG&E is aware of past failings, of missed deadlines, and delayed projects, so as part of the proposal, we will provide concrete, enforceable milestones for the construction and operation of the infrastructure. We've been working closely with the city staff on the details to make sure it meets the city's needs. Part of our proposal is offering a new level of support for the city's economic development efforts. We know that energy availability and connection timeline is a critical part of the recruitment and retention process as businesses are choosing to locate in San Jose or to make the determination to expand their existing operation. We want PG&E co-workers to work alongside the economic development team here in San Jose to provide energy-related data for potential projects. We believe that showing up together will enhance alignment and stability through the recruitment, permitting, engineering, and construction phases. We are also proposing to have a dedicated project development team to execute upon the major infrastructure needs that will support the economic growth to ensure consistency in approach and focus on success. We have reviewed the staff report on this item, which expresses a desire to enable growth and increase efficiency and resiliency. We strongly believe that PG&E is best positioned to offer this to San Jose. As you've heard today, we are ready to make new commitments and invest in infrastructure and a partnership that will enable the city's vision without introducing the risk of relying on a new investment partner. And finally, in closing, our conversations with city staff have been positive. They've been open. Conversation led to a solid understanding of the needs and how the ideas being discussed for the MOU can lead to mutual benefits and allow the city of San Jose to meet its economic development goals and to create a thriving and sustainable city. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we conclude, I just want to echo that I really appreciate the comments and the work with PG&E. I'm very excited about this opportunity. I think it provides a lot of potential. And regardless of the decisions that you all make as a council, we need PG&E to thrive and we need to be in deep partnership with them. So we are absolutely committed to that. As we close, to summarize, Staff are actively exploring potential options and strategies to secure financing needed for San Jose Power in both North San Jose and downtown, and evaluating the desirability of moving forward with forming a municipal electric utility. The success and desirability of this effort will depend in part on a reliable customer developer who can cover the upfront costs for the infrastructure in exchange for long-term access to the power. Staff will return to council in 2025 and present the outcomes of the financing strategy, preliminary results from the business case development, and any recommended actions on establishing San Jose Power as appropriate. We also expect to come back to council with the further work on the MOU, as what I'm thinking of informally as a bake-off, that is giving us an alternative that might be more desirable than going out on our own. And we'll be coming back with an analysis and a recommendation on that, but I'm very encouraged by the momentum forward with PG&E in this potential partnership. And with that, I realize we've taken more time than we normally do, but since this is such an important item, and committee is exactly the place that we can go a little bit deeper, I appreciate council you giving us this time, and we'll close and listen to public comment, and we'll be available to answer any questions that you have, and both IBEW and PG&E will be here for any direct questions you might have of them as well. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Kip, for the report, and thanks to all of our visitors from IBEW and PG&E for joining us and giving us their perspective and update on the relationship building that's been going on. Let's start and see if we have any public comment.
We have one request to speak. Dashiell Leeds, please make your way to the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Dashiell Leeds. I'm the Conservation Coordinator for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. We are in strong support of San Jose Power. However, we do have some concerns with what has been laid out before us, particularly regarding the open space north of Highway 237. This is really important habitat, and it's some of the last open space in the South Bay that is not landfill, that provides habitat for wildlife and a buffer for sea level rise. So please consider avoiding the development of this land. And in line with that, please consider not providing the additional power to incentivize the development of this land, but consider instead providing the power to allow for the use of existing facilities. Thank you for your time.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. Start with Councilmember Ortiz.
First off, I just want to thank staff for their very important work and time invested in this project. It's, this is groundbreaking. This is a groundbreaking project, and really, can't speak to the level of just importance and eyes that are on this. So thank you. I also want to thank Kip for his commitment to transparency, working with our partners, both in the utilities and in our workforce. I think making sure that this whole discussion is transparent, is done not in a silo or in a vacuum, but it is done with our partners is key to our success. Because I do believe that PG&E has invested in our city, has had a long commitment, whether it's philanthropic or in the infrastructure that has been invested and is established. And I think we also owe a commitment to them and their workforce for the great work that they're doing. And I know, when organizations get big, there's hiccups and, there's issues and, but hiccups and issues shouldn't be the reason to just abandon a partner that we've had for years, because I'm sure that we have residents, in my district for sure, that get upset at our services, and I wouldn't want them to go out and get an alternative city or something like that. I also want to thank IBW. I know you're here to advocate for your members. These are very important. It's what you guys do, and I respect and understand that these are good jobs. I want to thank PG&E for being a good employer, and I think sometimes when you get a company that's larger, they're able to invest more in their workforce. And so I want you to know that I'm watching this very closely, and I want to make sure that San Joseans who've been here for a long time, who've who've been able to earn family-sustaining wages from this infrastructure, are able to continue to do so. Yeah, I just quick comments. I want to thank you, Kip. I want to thank everyone, and I'm feeling good. I think we could look at these, boutique solutions for, some spaces, but at the end of the day, we need to remain committed to our workforce and to the people who have essentially built, the infrastructure in the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, I see Councilmember Foley now has his hand up. Go ahead.
Boy, gone a week and forgot how to use the microphone. Thank you to staff for the presentation on San Jose Power, and thank you to IBEW and PG&E. That's a lot to unpack, particularly from the PG&E side. I really look forward to our study session in March, where we can really, or a special session, I guess, because we'll be taking a vote at that time, really digging deep into the MOU. I have a lot of questions, but I will wait for more details on the MOU and maybe get a one-on-one with you, Kip, and other staff to learn a little bit more. I have a little concern about the risk of San Jose having its own utility company and going it alone. So I really like the idea of a partnership, particularly with a tried and true partner, PG&E. So for all the reasons that Councilmember Ortiz articulated, I really look forward to more information, particularly the information about IBEW and PG&E and an MOU going forward. So with that, I will move acceptance of the report and cross-reference to council. Second. December 17th, I think.
Thank you. Thank you for the motion. And thank you again, Kip, for the report. I think, so on December 17th, will we be having the same presentation with the same stakeholders? How will that be structured?
Yeah, we'll do a slightly more abbreviated presentation as is typical, but we would like to have the same stakeholders there, and we'd like to give them the opportunity to directly present to council, because I think it's very important that the full council hear directly from them.
Yeah, it was great to hear from the stakeholders. I want to thank you all for your engagement. I think, while it seemed up front like this was meant as some kind of adversarial approach, I think, if nothing else, the building of the relationship that's resulted is probably a long-term in the best interest of everybody, including all of you and the city, so I really appreciate that we've gotten to that point. I do appreciate staff is continuing to pursue potential localized connection points that may allow us to control things a little differently, and I think we ought to continue to investigate that in certain localized areas. While crazy headlines bothered me in the Mercury News that implied that there was a plan to take over PG&E's infrastructure to replace PG&E, I don't think that was ever the intention of any of the conversations we had. I mean, the intention was, how can we take advantage of this once-in-a-generation opportunity with the new backbone coming in from the north and the south to potentially offer a service in certain areas that might enhance what we can do for our residents and not necessarily change anything that PG&E is doing here. But the improvement of PG&E's service model, particularly in North San Jose, where I know a lot of companies are looking at building data centers and a lot of high energy use, having high energy use needs, this MOU is a great thing that we're now talking about, not having to react after the fact when a company like Broadcom says to me, we keep losing power, but having that infrastructure in place so that doesn't happen to the big companies that we're trying to recruit and retain here in San Jose. So I want to thank you for that. I attended your Innovation Summit, at least part of it, for the first few hours, and I was certainly really pleased about our mutual goals of improved customer service and climate resilience and trying to reduce carbonization and increase electrification of our grid. I know that we're all on the same page as far as what we need to do for the future of our state and for our planet. So I want to thank PG&E for that as well. I look forward to further engagement on those things. So again, thank you for everyone for your involvement and engagement on this process. I know it's not over. I do have one question, which I don't know if it's PG&E will be able to answer it or not, but there's been some discussion with LS Power, and maybe this is a little off topic, but it's related, so you're here, so I figured I'd ask the question. LS Power is looking for locations for some of their ancillary needs, and they've had conversations and I think some disagreement with PG&E about property where they can do some of their substation work or some of their storage work. Have there been further conversations about PG&E working with LS Power on that? Come on down.
Yeah, real quickly. I was actually on a call at 1 o'clock and PG and Ellis Power meeting. We've been meeting with Ellis Power since they were announced as the sponsor for those projects. They have to interconnect to our system. So, we have a lot of work to do to make them successful, and certainly their success brings more capacity into the South Bay and San Jose, which is important to us. So we continue to have conversations about how to co-develop those different locations, and I think we're getting to a place now where we're starting to get alignment on what that looks like. So I think the progress has been good. The discussion has continued to be open, and we continue to work together to move it forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know there's going to be, well, we heard about concerns about open space in North San Jose. Just to make clear on that topic, that the economic development lands have always been earmarked as economic development lands in North San Jose. These are not the same as the buffer lands on the bay or any of the other lands that are committed to be open space. Same thing with South San Jose. We now have a commitment to our open space in Coyote Valley, and we're going to have to figure out how to do some of the things that Ellis Power needs to do without eating into that open space, and I know that'll require some cooperation with PG&E for property maybe adjacent to some of your facilities. So I appreciate that you'll continue that conversation. Thank you. All right, since there's no other hands, let's move on to a vote to accept this report. All right, that motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. All right, now we're going back to item 1 on our agenda, which is the electric vehicle fleet and charging infrastructure status report. I think, Zach, you're going to kick us off.
Good afternoon. Zach Strike, Acting Director for the Energy Department, joined by Walter Lynn, Deputy Director of Public Works, and Andrea Arjona Amador, sorry, I probably got that wrong, Climate Smart Transportation Electric Mobility Lead in Transportation Department, and Kate Zamba, Senior Environmental Program Manager of the Energy Department, here today to talk about the EV fleet and give a charging infrastructure update.
Thank you. So city staff from the Departments of Energy, Public Work, and Transportation have formed 2 working groups focused on electrifying the city's fleet and installing charging infrastructure around the city. And so today we'll share the working group's priorities for this fiscal year. We'll share some background as to why we are focused on those priorities. We'll share some high-level findings from our fleet electrification master plan effort, and then we'll discuss other initiatives that the working groups are working on. So the working groups are continuing to focus this fiscal year on the electrification of the city's fleet and installation of accompanying charging infrastructure, and also on ensuring that residents have equitable access to charging infrastructure and affordable charging rates. There are 2 recent rules passed by the California Air Resources Board that's driving EV adoption by the city fleet and the public. CARB regulates air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions to make our air healthier. In 2022, CARB passed the Advanced Clean Car Rule, which requires car manufacturers to only sell new zero-emission cars and trucks in California starting 2035. This rule ramps up zero-emission sales over time, and Santa Clara County is already ahead of schedule. About 42% of new car sales have been electric this year so far. And since new internal combustion engine cars won't be available for sale in 2035, this means there's a lot of work to be done to make sure public charging infrastructure is available in all parts of the city, particularly for those who can't charge at home. In 2023, CARB adopted the Advanced Clean Fleets rule focused on transitioning medium and heavy-duty vehicles in most fleets in California to zero-emission options. This includes the City of San Jose's fleet. And there are 2 compliance pathways, and in its first filing this year, the city chose the purchase schedule pathway that currently requires half of new vehicle purchases to be zero emission, and this increases to 100% starting 2027. There are some exceptions, including for some public safety vehicles involved in mutual aid, or if it is if a zero emission option is not available. And now Walter will share more about the city's fleet.
Thank you so much, Kate and Zach. Walter Lynn, Deputy Director of Public Works. This next slide shows a quick glimpse in regards to our current city's inventory of fleet assets, in particular for vehicles. It is broken down between public safety and non-public safety and across the three major categories of light duty, medium duty, and heavy duty. We're just at about 2,000 vehicle rolling stock assets within the city. The current request, though, that we received from the different varying partner departments, this is a culmination of the past few years where we weren't able to necessarily buy vehicles, or the availability of vehicles really prevented us from getting those volumes in those particular fiscal years where they're requested. We're just at about 229 over public safety and non-public safety, again, over the three categories. In calendar year 2024 alone, though, we did receive 40 requests. Of those 40, we ordered 40 vehicles within this current fiscal year 2024. Of those 40, 20 have been delivered. We've built those up, and those are in the hands of the partner departments currently. The remaining 20, they are still on order. We are waiting for delivery. We are still waiting for a few more months. Once they do come in, we'll build those up, and we'll get those to the partner departments as quickly as possible so they can continue with their operations. This next slide, I know the graphic is a bit hard to see, but it does show the varying percentage of renters within the city. As Kate had mentioned, that is one of the fiscal challenges that is facing our residents in regards to cost-effective means to charge electric vehicles. Although they have the ability to buy the vehicles, the charging availability and the rates for this charging is still creating a fiscal challenge. So renters and multifamily residents, whether they have the option or not, based on the owner of the actual property, or just the option to have the charging infrastructure that is harder to come by. As such, there's more of a need for more of the public investment to assist that particular sector within our residents. Controlling the retail rates, that'll also help, especially for the lower income residents who basically that's their fuel charge. So again, gas, it is the vehicle electric charge that they would have from this infrastructure. Having more of an ability and affordability for that would make it easier for them to buy and consider more vehicles as well. And obviously installing more charging stations and making those available at our city facilities would absolutely help engage and promote the ability to make the decision to buy. So as mentioned in the staff report, we are looking at a phased approach for the infrastructure needs, the fleet and infrastructure needs through the next 15 years. Through an evaluation of where the vehicles dwell, that is where they domicile, or in the evenings once the operations are complete, where do they park for the evening and where could they charge? Through our assessments, we determined that there is a need for just over 900 additional charging ports. Those would be a combination of majority level 2s and some DC fast charger level 3s. For economies of scale and having the ability to really maximize the infrastructure itself, utilizing dual ports at a minimum for most of the installations. It is estimated that it's just under $30 million for that capital need across the 15 years. For this additional infrastructure. And those hubs that we talked about, although they are needed across the city, the major domicile locations would be at the police facilities, the various corporation yards, and at the airport. Then to replace the fleet, so we do still have a combination of internal combustion engine vehicles, electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles. In order to go through and replace those existing internal combustion vehicles that we have, it would be on average about $7 million a year over the course of that 15-year period, just over $106 million estimated at this point. That is somewhat in line with what we've had historically as a budget when we're looking at public safety and non-public safety vehicles. We've had an allocation more so on the public safety side, and then the general funded fleet for the replacement vehicles at about $7 to $8 million a year. With tax credits and other incentives that can bring the cost down for the vehicles and some of the infrastructure that we're looking at as well too, and as noted in the staff report, and as Andrew mentioned as well too, we're still looking for more of those incentive options for the city. By replacing the fleets, we are estimated to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions as a city operation when including all facilities, fleet, and other programs by about 12%. That is just over 15,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide that can be avoided and reduced. There are challenges, though, with our program and the way that the city is looking at how we will accommodate and be in compliance over the next 15 years. City staff has met with CARB, the California Air Resources Board, a few times in regards to the Advanced Clean Fleets program, realizing that there are inherent challenges in how we are looking at the availability of resources. That includes staffing to actually get the replacements and the infrastructure in place as well. The availability of the vehicles. We've had statements from various manufacturers, two of the major manufacturers that we provide, that we have obtained our vehicles from, indicating that they cannot provide those types and classifications of vehicles to us in a timely manner for the next several months. And that is a decision where then the city needs to look at whether we halt operations or greatly reduce those operations for the community, while we wait for those vehicles to be available, or we are submitting in exemptions to CARB. Really providing that justification of what the timeline is, the budget, and also the challenges around the fast charging infrastructure that we need for some of these heavier duty vehicles as well too, and what that impact would be meaning to the operations and programs to our residents. And with that, I will lead it to Andrea to close out the presentation.
Thank you, Walter. The working groups are advancing several efforts to support fleet electrification and expand EV charging. This includes pursuing grants, launching community serving pilots, developing policies, and creating tools to enhance strategic planning. We've applied to multiple grants, with some results still pending. While we didn't secure funding for charging infrastructure in some previous rounds, we continue to pursue and explore new opportunities like the PG&E EV Fleet Program. To address gaps in charging access, San Jose Clean Energy is piloting two programs, a fast charging hub and a multifamily EV charger incentive program. To support these and future efforts, DOT is creating an EV infrastructure mapping and planning tool to help us identify areas where we need to prioritize new charging stations. The working group is also studying a policy to guide third-party EV charger installations in city property in alignment with our EV infrastructure goals. In addition to these efforts, DOT is working to expand shared and electric mobility options, focusing on equity and accessibility in underserved areas. Over the next 2 years, we'll install 39 new bike share stations and deploy more than 700 e-bikes in the east side, and we'll deploy key pilots through 2027, including bike education and apprenticeship programs and incentives for transit and microtransit. This slide concludes our presentation. We recommend that the committee accept the report on the status of the electric vehicle fleet and citywide charging infrastructure work plan, and welcome any questions, feedback, or additional input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. Do we have any members of the public?
Yes, we have one request to speak. Ruth Marino, please make your way down to the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Marino, and I'm representing San Jose Community Energy Advocates and Mothers Out Front. We sent you a letter this morning asking questions about this fleet update, and I'll summarize some of them now. First of all, we appreciate staff's work that is described in their report, but the report indicates that the city fleet has 250 EVs, the same as last year's update. However, I think I heard right now that there's another 40 that's not included in there, which is terrific. It wasn't in the report, wasn't in the presentation. So the only thing I would ask is when this report goes to the full council, you usually don't change the memo, but if you could include it in the presentation, then we would know that there's another 40. But we did have a few other questions here. So we wanted to know how many total non-public safety light-duty vehicles were purchased this year to date. And of these, how many were electric? And for gas vehicles purchased, why weren't they purchased? Next, how many of the 67 non-public safety light-duty current requisition requests noted in the report can be filled with electric vehicles. And again, I don't know if the 40 are in those 67 or not. Next, although the green fleet policy or the state's clean fleet requirements, neither of them include public safety vehicles. San Jose did receive 3 new, oh. Thought I had turned it off, sorry. Just want to know when the green fleet policy is going to be updated, and we're thrilled that 43% of the new light duty sales in okay.
Thank you. Back to the committee.
Well, thank you for the comment, and again, thanks for the presentation. We'll start with Vice Chair Davis.
Thanks for your comment, Ruth. That would be helpful to know what was purchased in this last year, just as an update. And then I just wanted to talk about 2 things. The charging for city-owned vehicles. I think you had mentioned, Walter, about the need for where they overnight, but we've heard so much about charging during the day, and so I'm wondering how much use some of the vehicles are getting during the day, and whether they're actually being parked at other locations where they could be charged.
That's a great question, Vice Chair Davis, as well too. So when we're looking at the constant need for charging, we're actually evaluating whether they do need daily charging or whether it is not as often. So very similar to an internal combustion vehicle, we're not refueling every single day. As long as there is enough capacity for the day's events, and whether that is then every other day or every third day charging, that would help a little bit of the rotation. And obviously there's a behavior and a communication education component to that, to the users and the operators of the vehicles. But that would help free up some of the needs for more infrastructure right away. But for the daytime charging, that is something that we're looking into as well too. For the various municipal city sites, whether there are visitors to those sites, members of the public that also need potential use of those chargers, we want to make sure that there's a balancing act with that as well too. But that is an evaluation: is where are the routes and what is the average daily drive, and how often do they need to charge, to really balance out how much do we need on any given year for the installations.
Okay, that's helpful, and also so that they can charge. Hopefully they can charge during the day when we're at the duck's back, or whatever the saying is, when we have so much more energy in the system.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is the medium to heavy duty vehicle types. I just think we have so much other low-hanging fruit that I just think we should put that off, because the cost isn't there yet, the infrastructure's not there yet, the products aren't really there yet, honestly, and we also don't know if they're gonna actually, I mean, just honestly, I don't think we know if they're gonna be electric or if they're gonna be some other kind of fuel type. That's still TBD from what I understand.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. And yes, that's accurate. As we are continuing to review what is available and what is still being developed within the industry. That's the challenge that we're facing, is how much is available. And again, with the manufacturer statements that we just received within the last few weeks, the 2 major manufacturers are indicating they cannot provide that to us. The availability is not there as yet. Whatever can be found, we're looking at 3 times the cost of what it would normally be as a traditional internal combustion engine equivalent. What I didn't mention during this presentation, but in past presentations, is the availability of the vehicle, the cost of the vehicle, and the charging equipment, but it's also the electric service to the vehicles where those charging equipment would be installed. And that's an evaluation that we're currently doing as well too with our partners with the Energy Department, DOT, and our consultants. It's really looking at these domicile locations. What are the actual needs and what vehicles are we charging? Do we have enough electrical capacity now, or do we need that service level upgrade in working with PG&E as well too? Otherwise, we could be detrimenting our electrical distribution system, blowing out circuits. We want to make sure that it's effective, and we need to properly plan it as well too.
Yeah, I think if we need to apply for an exemption, we should just do that sooner rather than later, because I still don't have a lot of faith that large heavy-duty vehicles are going to go away from internal combustion engine. I just think the fuel source is going to change, because battery size is not, or battery efficiency is not improving as quickly as it needs to take into account those large, really heavy vehicles. So I just think we should focus on the rest of our fleet, because we have so many other things to deal with. And I'm also interested to know for our police vehicles, how many miles do they put on a day?
I don't have that.
Like an average patrol vehicle.
Yeah, I don't have that information. I can get that. I know that we're looking at the varying types as well too. So whether they are marked, unmarked, whether they're pursuit ready, not pursuit needed, those types of vehicles. I can get the average daily mileage across the department. Yeah.
So when you're coming back to the for an update, a status report back to this committee in the future, I think having that kind of level of detail would be helpful for the committee to give you kind of maybe more specific guidance, so that we can make sure that we're spending our $7.1 million a year on replacement vehicles in the best way possible.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you for the good questions. Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to thank staff for the informative report, and I just want to especially just appreciate you for the elevation of the EV infrastructure and equity that we see throughout the city, especially in District 5. Although I am starting to see as new shopping centers kind of redesign or repave their parking spaces, they have been putting in some EV infrastructure. So I'm really happy about that, and because for a while there it was a desert when it came to that. And I'm also interested in looking forward to hearing more about the East San Jose Equity Mobility Project as it develops. I definitely want to request a briefing on that just to hear more. I wanted to ask, is that project specific to a neighborhood in the east side? Is it specific to districts, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's specific to East San Jose with some boundaries, for example, for the microtransit pilot, that is a reduced boundary, and for the entire area for bike share and e-bike expansion. So it's focused on East San Jose.
Okay, that makes sense. So is this kind of like the alternative to the Ocala stop on the light rail that they were exploring?
I'm not entirely sure,
okay. All right.
But that's kind of like the larger areas in San Jose for the broader programs, and for the most specific programs, like microtransit, is really limited to a number of stations.
Okay, no, that makes sense. I've been in conversation with city staff and VTA about a potential alternative. I was just wondering if this was it. So I'll wait to the briefing. I also wanted to quickly follow up on the status of the direct current fast charging hubs pilot program. Can you share the status of where the rebid is, and are these changes to the scope or design are there changes or scopes to the design that we could hope to get better results on?
Yes, so we bid it out at first in 2022. We had a few bidders and we worked on negotiations for nearly 6 months, but ultimately that didn't work out. We spent some time talking to different market participants, and so some of the changes we're making is to bid out more hub sites, so instead of 1 to 3, more like 4 to 7.
Okay.
And aligning with the needs of the city fleet can help facilitate in terms of financing more hubs too, because it can meet that demand.
Great.
And we plan to bid out within the next 1 to 2 months.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And just so I'm aware, this is for infrastructure on city properties, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Oh, and I motion to accept the report. And do we need to cross-reference this? No, just motion to accept the report. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and 2 seconds. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to follow up first on the 40 vehicles. Those were 40 EVs in our light vehicle fleet?
That's correct. Yes, all of them were all electric EVs and not hybrids.
And as we move forward, this schedule for purchasing vehicles, I assume it's not that we're just replacing vehicles. We're waiting until the end of the useful lifetime, and there's a regular replacement schedule that has to be met. Is that right?
That's correct. So there are two policies that we're guided by. One is the green fleet policy, which indicates anything that is available on the marketplace that could be the equivalent for the replacement. That is what we will look at purchasing at first. Then the second is the vehicle use policy. So that is where if it meets a certain criteria in terms of mileage driven and age, then it's eligible to be retired and then replaced.
And sort of to follow up to Councilmember Davis's questions about focusing on one type of vehicle versus another. Clearly, the focus is really on what's being replaced at a current cycle time. We wouldn't necessarily accelerate replacement. We would just try to maximize the EVs we're purchasing as part of that replacement cycle. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, a few years ago, we were directed by the administration to see what adjustments we could make to the vehicle replacement policy. So we did decrease some of the age and mileage driven for certain vehicle types in order to get the changeover faster.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess, for certain types that are ready. But for others, maybe we can squeeze a little more time out of them as we wait for that technology to change. While I certainly agree we're not quite there on larger vehicles, I wouldn't want us to go all in on larger vehicles on internal combustion engines. That means we have 10 years before we get the next replacement cycle. I know that there's some places where they're piloting electric garbage trucks and other things. So there are some technologies out there, and we just have to be a little patient.
Yes.
We focus on non-public safety, but on public safety, I mean, I know there's police departments around the state and country who are buying EVs. So clearly, there are types of uses that they work. Can you just talk a little bit about how we build in the maintenance cost into this model? Because I think many of us know that the maintenance cost on EVs is far lower. In some sense, we might spend a little more up front or have to invest a little bit more, but the long-term general fund savings might actually pay out. Have you done some analysis on that?
Great question, Chair Cohen, and thank you for asking the question as well, too. So we are looking quite heavily at the maintenance needs, whether that is additional training for staff because of the newer technologies always evolving, and how we can do more of that in-house versus through the manufacturer or through some of the contractual services that we have also. That being said, because there are the different mechanics for the vehicles, the maintenance could be a little back and forth. While they don't have the necessary components of the internal combustion engine vehicles, we do have the charging infrastructure that we have to worry about as well too. So not necessarily a one-for-one give and take, but there are other elements where the wear and tear and the usage on the infrastructure side, that could be a little bit more depending on how frequently and how popular that particular hub is. But overall, the vehicles themselves, based on the replacements, the availability of those replacements, it could be either cost neutral or cost effective. I will say that for some of the vehicles that we have had, some of the larger vehicles, as you may recall, some of the buses per se at the airport, all electric, some of the manufacturers though have gone out of business. And that creates a different scenario where then, as we're then responsible for the maintenance, it's where do we get the assistance, the replacement parts, and how do we continue those operations from a maintenance perspective as quickly as we can. So
and on vehicles like that, replacement and maintenance is on a lot of other parts, not the engine. The engine is easier to maintain and cheaper to maintain, but it's everything else in the bus and vehicle that still probably has the same life cycle as in either type of vehicle.
Yes,
so I understand that. Okay.
And the technology is fairly advanced, so replacing that could be expensive as well.
But I would think that with all, the amount of maintenance we're doing for our police cars is probably pretty high, and I'd be curious to know what we think we might be able to save, without having to oil change and do all the things that other, on all those police cars. So maybe that's a part of that report coming back next time is more details on that.
Yeah.
Just one last question. Have you or anyone in the department met with some of those mobile charging companies like Juul Labs or any of the others and talked to them about their technology?
We haven't. We're aware of some, but we haven't had conversations on them yet.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll ask the maker of the motion to add to the motion that you do some outreach to some of these companies. I met with Juul Labs a couple weeks ago. And of course, many of these companies think that talking to a council member is the right approach. And I said to them, no, you should meet with city staff who actually will be doing the work to encourage uses and understand where the uses are. So having some of these meetings would be great. Just for context, Juul Labs installs one charging station in a parking garage and has little vehicles that they charge that drive around and charge the cars in the parking garage. So this is the way to retrofit the old multifamily apartments. You take one parking space as a charging location. They're actually robotic vehicles that when you as long as you leave a little plug on your car sitting on the back bumper, they come and they automatically plug into it and charge the car during the day while you're gone from your car or at night. And you don't have to be there to charge your car. It's just set up automatically through the app to charge vehicles. And it's a really, really, it's much less infrastructure to install, and it's just a mobile system. I'm sure there's other companies besides Jewel Labs that do it, but it would be great for us to look into this as and maybe provide incentives for apartment buildings to install this kinds of things. So I'd like to add to the motion to investigate that. All right. All right. Thank you. And I think we don't see any more hands, so let's vote on this item. What did it say? Oh, right, okay. I think it's just yeah. All right, we're on to our next item. I see we have John and team down here to talk to us about street sweeping. So let's get
Thank you, Chair Cohen and committee. John Risto, Director of Transportation. With me today to present the street sweeping overview is Jennifer Sagan, our Deputy Director for DOT, Eric Holland, Division Manager, and Aaron Collin, Division Manager. My slide is what is the purpose of our street sweeping program? It's actually twofold. The primary purpose of the street sweeping program is actually to prevent or remove pollutants before they reach storm drains and waterways in compliance with our municipal regional stormwater permit. As a secondary benefit to that removal of those pollutants is to remove the debris and litter that might be in the street, which could then improve our community or street aesthetics. So two main purposes. One is really an environmental, the other one is an aesthetics. I'm going to turn the program over to Jennifer to carry on with the presentation. Jennifer.
Thank you, John. Jennifer Sagan, Deputy Director of DOT's Infrastructure Maintenance Division. So you probably all know, moving on to the next slide here, that the street sweeping is delivered by two programs in San Jose. We have a city crew, or what we call the in-house program, and our residential street sweeping program. The in-house program is operated by DOT with staff that work for the city and vehicles that are owned by the city, and the contracted program is managed jointly by DOT and ESD, and is delivered through contractor. This hybrid model allows DOT the flexibility of cost-effective 24-hour response in case there's an issue that needs street sweeping. We frequently get calls from PD and fire department to come clean up after an accident or something else. So this slide covers the route completion over time, and it's both the city crew vehicles and the contractor vehicles have trekking technology on them, so it helps us with the route completion, and we often get requests from the public to say, we didn't get swept, and we can look back to see, did the sweeper actually get on the street? And the city crews have 4 routes 4 days a week, and then on Fridays, anything they miss, they will go back and complete the route. And then on the residential streets, DOT has inspectors who follow the sweepers to assess the cleanliness and effectiveness of the sweeping. And additionally, Green Waste, the contractor, has route verification system, and they can go back at our request and re-sweep a street if needed. Green Waste also has supervisors that monitor their own team and often handle customer service complaints directly. Talking about effectiveness, this slide, the blue bar indicates how the city is evaluating the effectiveness of our sweeping program. And so we have inspectors that go out and they use a 5-point scale to measure the effectiveness of the sweep. And a copy of the chart was included with the memo as attachment A. The orange bar represents resident feedback on the effectiveness of our street sweeping, and we are using the city's customer focus survey, question 14F, which is conducted quarterly, to get that information. And the effectiveness is evaluated on a 5-point scale. 5 points means no debris was left behind, and there's a relatively clean sweep, and the 1-point rating indicates there was an issue that resulted in significant debris left behind. So there are a number of barriers and challenges to getting an effective clean sweep. Sweepers often avoid large debris piles, like you could see in the left-hand picture. Occasionally something could be hidden in the debris pile that could damage the vehicle or, be shot out as a projectile onto the sidewalk. So they'll very slowly move into the leaves, and if they can get it, then they do. They can also use the brooms to kind of spread the pile out and then drive over and get more of it. But if it's a very large pile, often they will avoid it. And another common sweeping issue are trees with branches that hang lower than 14 feet. So you can see the top right picture shows a vehicle going through the street. That's one of the garbage trucks. And the low-hanging branches can either damage the vehicle or cause the vehicle to have to veer away from the curb line. And then another common obstacle is parked vehicles. Parked vehicles are probably the greatest impediment to our street sweeping program. And one parked car at the curb results in nearly 3 car lengths of curb missed. That's really important to note because the sweepers just aren't maneuverable enough that they can get back into the curb. Street sweeping signage is one way to address parked cars. However, signage can only be installed when funding is available. We currently don't have any additional funding. And one option to address areas is enhanced sweeps that help remind folks to move cars on their sweep days. So, moving on, I am going to cover the in-house crew. So as I noted, the in-house crew is made up of employees that work for the city and vehicles that are owned by the city. They handle the large streets, including arterials and connector streets, and also they sweep the bikeways. A typical day, there's 4 sweepers on a route, and as I noted, on Friday they'll go in and make up anything that they couldn't cover during the routes. And we have a big accomplishment this year. In June, we implemented the sweep waste program. You could see the sweep waste bin program. So you can see the picture in the middle is the hook lift truck delivering the sweep waste bin out to the community, and they deploy them every night and pick them up in the morning at the end of the sweep. This allows the sweepers to continue on their route without having to travel back to the corporation yard to dump their full hopper, and also allows them not to be dumping onto the street where we could be leaving residual waste behind. That was the last recommendation from the 2016 street sweeping audit, so we're happy to finally be finished and having completed all of those recommendations. And with that, I'm going to pass to Eric.
Thank you, Jennifer. Eric Hahn, Department of Transportation, and I'm going to be talking about our residential street sweeping program. A little bit different than our in-house program in that we are a monthly service, and we actually use inspectors, and we have 3 inspectors who follow 4 contractual street sweepers. Thank you. It is stuck. Huh? Yeah, could you forward next slide? Apologize.
There we go.
Thank you.
You got it.
Okay. As I was saying, contractual street sweeping. We have 3 full-time inspection staff who actually follow the 4 sweepers that are contracted by Green Waste, and they actually have a 5th street sweeper. Inspection staff, essentially, their role is to ensure that the city is being cleaned per city standards, making sure there's no debris in the curb line. We also coordinate quite a bit with other departments such as environmental services and the parking compliance team for enhanced sweeps and notifying residents of their sweep days. Excuse me. Street sweeping staff also do a lot of outreach with property owners. And this next slide actually shows some of the outreach that we do with property owners, giving them the first opportunity to address any issues. Parked cars are, as Jennifer mentioned, the #1 deterrent or impediment for street sweeping. So we encourage folks to move their cars. We remind folks about the street sweeping days and times. We also notify residents about low-hanging trees. So we give them an opportunity to address that, and we put them in contact with the city forestry team with the Department of Transportation. And lastly, the street sweeping inspectors also follow up on other obstructions, such as parked cones, debris collection bins left out prior to, not on their assigned pickup day, and as well as parking cones and basketball hoops. This chart shows the cost of adding street sweeping signage. I think what I'd like to do first is put a little bit of context. Currently, the contract with Green Waste is at its capacity, so we have no more, there's no more room to add signage, and as Jennifer mentioned, there's no funding. But in order to do that, we would need to increase and renegotiate the contract with Green Waste. Also, we would need to increase our staffing for parking compliance and for inspection services to make sure that those areas that are signed are being delivered services per the signed routes. And these routes cost a little bit more. So we've broken that down to one-time costs and then the ongoing costs with staff. And I'll hand it over to Ariane.
Thank you. DOT parking enforcement officers are responsible for the enforcement of posted parking restrictions in street sweeping zones and do so through the issuance of parking citations. Citywide, parking enforcement officers are called upon to enforce over 500 miles of street sweeping restrictions, or roughly 13% of curb miles. In FY 23-24, over 66,000 citations were issued to 45,000 vehicles. Approximately 90% of the vehicles cited during this year received 1 or 2 citations, indicating that these vehicle owners may have simply forgotten to move their car on the street sweeping day. A low volume of habitual offenders, noted at 1.3% of vehicles cited, suggests that citations are an effective enforcement tool in most cases. When looking at where street sweeping citations were issued, approximately 72% were issued in areas with equity atlas scores of 8, 9, and 10, which represent neighborhoods with a high concentration of low income and communities of color. Next slide for me. To assist our communities with understanding more about specific street sweeping activities in their area, the city has an online street sweeping lookup tool. The interactive map can be accessed via multiple paths on the city's website, including DOT and ESD pages. Additionally, ITD introduced a street sweeping lookup feature within SJ 311 in January of 2024, which also offers an option to subscribe to email notifications about upcoming sweep schedules for your address the day before the sweep. Jump back.
Looks like we're missing one of our slides. So we have a slide that would cover our action items. And I'll just read from my notes here. Consider a specific crew to proactively maintain new infrastructure and respond to customer complaints. We've sent forward a budget proposal for that the last couple of years, and it didn't rise to the top of all the many, many requests that come through. But that's something that we'll probably submit again this year for consideration. and develop a condition rating tool that can be utilized by the public to help us identify areas and identify trouble spots, and that could be help us to create a more robust maintenance program. And then one thing that we did accomplish over the last year, in addition to completing the street sweeping audit recommendations, was coordinating with ITD on the development of an email reminder alert for residents, which was rolled out in January of 2024. And so people can sign up for that, and it will send them an email reminder of their sweep days to help remind them to move their car.
And if I could just add, while we didn't get a dedicated team to address bike lane sweeping, we were able to incorporate that with our landscape team. So any debris items left in the bikeways, all of the bikeways are swept on a quarterly basis, but you can call DOT dispatch and we can go out there probably same day, depending on time of day, and collect any items that are out there. We actually use some data from our traffic engineers. Most of the bikeways seem that like they're relatively in good condition. The number one issue are things that are left in the way, parked cars, bins, and some other items. So again, we need to continue to work on outreach, and we'll continue to look at ways and opportunities to do that.
Thank you, Eric. And that concludes our presentation, and we're ready to take any questions you have.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. I know you always receive some good questions from this committee, so we'll go to public comment first.
We have one request to speak. Ann Ferris, please make your way down to the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to reinforce some things that were brought up by Jennifer, who gave the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee a very good presentation, telling us how much work goes into keeping the streets clean. And as a member of that committee, I'm here to reinforce the issue of keeping the bike lanes swept clean. And the biggest problem is illegally parked vehicles, illegally parked commercial trash bins, and large piles of tree branches and yard waste, which the sweepers can't get around and can't deal with. The bicycling community has learned to to report these to 311, but it hasn't been very effective for a lot of reasons, and it's certainly on weekends and when there's events going on downtown and people are parked illegally in the bike lanes. It's not possible for the cyclists to stay in the bike lanes, and that causes a lot of danger to the bicyclists and to the other cars using the roadways. We're wondering if the parking compliance could work with the street sweeping team to try and find a way to work more closely to keep these illegal things out of the bike lanes so that the street sweepers can do their job. One other thing that the committee wanted me to bring was to consider that parking violation fines that are added to the city's general fund be considered instead to help fund city's Vision Zero program. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
Thank you. And apropos of our last discussion, I look forward to electric street sweepers in the future. All right, let's start with Vice Chair Davis.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for your presentation and for the email reminder alert and finishing the audit recommendations. That's very helpful. I do want to ask the question that the public commenter asked about things that are in the bike lanes and whether parking compliance can be helpful in those respects, especially when it's parked cars in the bike lanes on the weekends.
That's a great question and a great comment, Anne. Thank you. We have been coordinating and will continue to coordinate more closely. We've had a monthly coordination meeting, and with parked cars and other obstacles like that being the greatest impediment, we will be looking at how we can coordinate with parking compliance and also ESD on the waste bins being left out. So that'll be something we'll tighten up more this year.
Yeah, I think it's, I know there are some places like along Park Avenue where there are not there's no space between the bike lane and the curb. And so there's waste out there, and there are dumpsters out there because on garbage day. But I have also noticed that there is yard waste out in the bike lanes for more than just right before garbage day, the day before garbage day, and that's really, I think, the issue. I know that the people who use that route are aware of when garbage day is, and really what they don't want is for there to be, put the dumpster out, put the yard waste out that night before, as opposed to the morning before or the weekend, when garbage day isn't Monday morning. So that's just kind of to follow on with the comment. I did want to ask about slide 4, the route completion over time percentages. Is that overall for city crews and contractor, or how do we know, other than the spot checks, number one, that the contractors are meeting their obligation, and then number two, there's a complete versus done well, and you started to get into that, but what I think I want to know about the spot checks and whether they're noticed in advance where they're going to be, if there's any kind of information that they have, because I have seen, and I know many people have seen this, it still happens where the street sweeper in residential areas is going very fast, and that's why it takes 3 car lengths, by the way. When they're going slower, I've seen them go and just cut in and get out of the way of the car and get back in, and it doesn't go 3 car lengths when they are going slower and doing a more thorough job. I've also seen them just blaze by and not even try to go when there's a very, very long space, and not even try to go to the curb.
Thank you for that. Real quick, in regards to the sweepers going too fast, please call that into DOT. I can give you the DOT number directly, the street sweeping number, 408-794-1920. Let us know so that we can verify with the sweeper operators so that we can remind them to slow down. What typically happens, I know it's a bad look, is they're probably going down a little bit faster because they can already see all the obstructions and they're kind of swaying down. They're just trying to get to the next location. But please let us know. That's helpful. We can't be everywhere at once. And then, I'm sorry, if you could repeat the other, I think there was another part.
Yeah,
Yes, correct. The completion percentage is a combination of both the in-house and the residential street sweeping contractor.
Okay, so I guess it would be helpful to have that broken out so that we know to what extent they are meeting their contractual obligations versus not. And also to have in there, and I know these are with the waste management contracts, but we've done a lot of addendums to those contracts, and it would be helpful to have more than just a completion requirement going forward, now that we have this 5-point scale, which we didn't have before, by the way, and thank you, John and team, for working on that, because I know we didn't really rate them in the past, and before we started having this come to this committee, and it lived in DOT for sure and got clarified. But if we can have that more spelled out in their contract with actual expectations, as opposed to just did you complete or not complete. And then my last question was, do we notice in advance where we're going to spot check? Do they know where we're going to be? Because that could change their behavior.
Right. They do not. They do not.
Okay.
Because we have to be fairly strategic because there's only 3 of us moving around chasing their 5 sweepers. So we're not going to be at the same spot every week. So we move around quite a bit.
Okay. And there's no pattern that they could discern to know where you're going to be?
No.
Okay. That's helpful. How many miles of streets?
Councilmember, Vice Chair, may I just please add real quickly, the scale, the 1 through 5 scale has been a core service number for us for at least a decade, but I think perhaps it's not really been shared with our vendor, so that's something that I think we can work on, have that conversation with Green Waste to make sure they're understanding the distinction between just, you did the miles versus what is the condition like. I think that's a very good next step for us to take.
Yeah,
with them.
great.
Yeah,
Start sharing it with them, and then at the next contract addendum, because we do many of them, I think we should start having expectations about what that should be, and it should ratchet up over time.
I think that's a great action item for us.
Okay, great. And then for the 3 full-time in-house sort of spot checkers, how many miles of spot checking are you able to do a year? We have like 2,000 something. I know Rick knows exactly how many miles of streets we have.
Our actual total sweep miles is 67,000 annually. It's a little bit different because the in-house, curb miles, correct. Because the in-house actually has more frequent service than the residential. So I want to say off the top of my head, it was close to 50,000 miles. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
So you're spot checking a large proportion
Correct.
each year?
Correct.
Okay, that's really good to know. Yeah, I think we've come a long way in knowing more about street sweeping, but also I think that it's good for us to know, but it is, to Rick's point, really good for the contractors to know that we are looking at it at that level, and then following on with expectations for what it should be. I do think the targets for 24, 25 are pretty low in terms of, I think it's great the percent of swept miles rated as good or better is a good increase over the 23-24 actual. I don't think the customer rating target is that much different than the 23-24. So I would hope that if you're expecting the city to be rating higher, then we should be expecting the residents to notice that as well. Thanks.
Councilmember Foley.
Great, thank you for the presentation. I actually have some questions about the bike lanes. So you had mentioned that we sweep the bike lanes quarterly. Is that just on the residential streets?
We have a dedicated program with the in-house landscape team through that is quarterly. I think we have supplemental cleaning with the contractor and in-house crews as well.
And then the major streets are swept twice a month. All the bike lanes on the major streets are swept twice a month. So for instance, for 3rd Street, 4th Street, that area. Right?
Okay, thank you. Hillsdale?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Twice a month, yeah.
So is that the enhanced sweeps then that no, can you tell me what the enhanced sweep, it looks like there's an enhanced sweep on Hillsdale.
Sure. The enhanced sweeps are one of the tools. We actually can only do so many because they do cost more money, and DOT is only funded for so many. But what it is we coordinate with parking compliance to put out the notices in advance. So we basically clear the street. They can't exceed, on the residential side, approximately 3-mile segments. So we put everything out 48 hours in advance, let the residents know, this street will be swept. So everything is barricaded, signs put out, and everyone knows to not be there on the day of the sweep. So that probably happens, all the notification on a typical week would happen on Monday, Tuesday, and then on Friday is usually the enhanced sweep. And we work with the various council offices. We actually also work with Green Waste, our contractor, who sometimes give us feedback, hey, this area we're not getting to, so we should consider an enhanced sweep.
Just a little bit more explanation, because the enhanced sweeps are intended to go to those locations that are heavily impacted by parked cars that don't have the signage, that just don't get moved. So, and we work with council office to actually figure those out, and we can do about 14 a year. Is that what we're doing right now? About 14. So we will coordinate that and target a neighborhood that is heavily impacted, that they don't get their streets swept as well as if we had the cars moved.
Okay, maybe we can follow up with you regarding this big blue line that goes through District 9, which I'm assuming is Hillsdale, as a enhanced sweep, just to get a little more information. what that actually means. I'm really curious or concerned actually about the bike lanes on our arterials. So it would be the city streets that we're sweeping, right? We're doing those.
Mostly, yeah.
And we do have equipment that goes through the narrow bike lanes. It's smaller. And, but I've noticed that people throw it's not just garbage, it's leaves. And especially this time of year, there's a lot of leaves and sticks and things like that. So how can what's the easiest way for someone to report that there's debris in a bike lane and we need to send someone out?
Probably the easiest way to report would be either calling 311 or through the app or through calling the DOT dispatch number. And we usually try and get somebody out there pretty quickly to remove an obstruction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And to Councilmember Davis's point about people putting their leaves out or their yard waste out a day before, they're really not putting it out the day before. If their yard waste is picked up on Friday, they're doing their gardening on Saturday, and it sits out there for a week. So, which is really frustrating to me. It's an eyesore. It's difficult for bicyclists to navigate around it. So have we ever considered, when we see those, giving fines to property owners or occupants for putting out their yard waste too early? It's supposed to be a 24-hour thing. I don't think that's enforced. So people do it, and my neighbors are probably going to scream at me for saying this, but you know, I'm just tired of seeing your debris out for Saturday for a Friday pickup. Just saying.
Right, so what we have been doing is when we notice that happening in the same location over and over, we would coordinate with ESD and let them know, and it would be ESD staff that would take action on that. And as I mentioned earlier, we've had some level of communication and coordination, and it's something that we're going to be working more closely on this coming year.
Okay. Have we ever considered setting up a text message system instead of email? Because a lot of people no longer use email, no longer depend on that. They use texting as a form of communication. So rather than the email reminder, have we ever considered texting reminder or texting that, hey, just notice that you have this pile of leaves out, your pickup isn't till 5 days from now, you might want to make sure you conform to council policy, and otherwise we may start fining you. I'm just saying.
I can touch on the text alerting. I checked with ITD today, and right now the SJ311 platform is not compatible with text alerts. So it's something in their queue, but they do not have a timeline for rolling that out at this time.
There you go. Oh. Budget document. Okay. All right. Well, we need to work on that. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Did you move acceptance? Then I will move acceptance of the report.
Second.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. Follow up on Councilmember Foley's suggestion. If there's people who are repeat offenders, I mean, we also offer them carts, right? So we might want to, when we send out messages, we might want to just tell people, please don't leave your things out. Yeah. Also offer them that cart for yard waste so that they have an alternative, because it is true. People are going to do.
Which is what I do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
She's the model. We'll put her on. We'll put her on the ad. But anyway, it's an option. I mean, I understand why people would do their gardening on the weekend, but what do they do in the interim? That's the challenge. Just one last question. I heard you say the green waste capacity for additional signage isn't there. I'm not sure I understand that. I understand why parking compliance might need additional, but what does this have to do with green waste's capacity?
So it costs more money to go to a signed route because they have to be there in a specific time. So we can only have so many miles that are signed per the current agreement. Again, that doesn't mean it can't change. It just means we have to negotiate what this new cost is. So if we want to add, let's say, 100 more miles of parking prohibition signage, there's a corresponding cost that has to be added to the contract.
Interesting. I'm surprised. I mean, our signage, is the signage that specific per the hours? I mean, sometimes can't we do signage that says no parking on the third Thursday and just have it be more general? And that wouldn't change? I mean, can we be more, create a process that would be?
We'll have to look into that. I haven't thought of that. That's more of a noticing to the community, which we can try. We do try with our flyers and, you know, the lookup tools and the various things, but that's a...
I mean, from my experience in other cities has been that it's like the day, you can't park there. Mm-hmm. And so I was surprised, I guess I'm surprised to hear that it's that specific that they have to be there.
Yeah, it is. So what we do is we have cars move from one side of the street to the other. So it is that day. So if you're on Hillsdale, half of the street parks on one side in the morning and then the other half parks on the other side of the street. So it is that day still, and it was set up that way originally.
Okay. Well, anyway, just something for me to think about as we move forward on this. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second and no other hands, so let's move to a vote on this item. Just notice that it says abstain. I think we don't want to allow abstentions at the council meeting, so I guess there's a technical glitch today with the abstention button being turned on. But anyway, the vote is 4-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to our final item on today's agenda, which is our sanitary and storm sewer collection system green stormwater update. Matthew Nguyen.
Good afternoon, council members, committee members, and Chair Cohen, and the public. I'm Matthew Nguyen, Deputy Director for Public Works, and with me today is Norm Mascarenas, Principal Engineer, oversee the Transportation and Hydraulic Services Division. And with us today in the audience are staff from Public Works, managing the sanitary sewer and storm sewer, as well as our colleagues from DOT and ESD also being here to support. And answer any questions you may have at the end. So let's start. We have a large, sanitary sewer system, which consists of over 2,000 miles of pipeline in the city. And our sanitary sewer system collects sewage from residential, commercial, and industrial buildings through laterals, and all of that sewage will be conveyed into a series of pipeline and interceptor, and eventually will end up at the regional wastewater facility for treatment before releasing to the bay. The city in general is a flat and gradually sloping from south to north. So most of the time, the sewage will be flow by gravity from south to north. In some few cases, we still need to have some pump station to get it lifted and pump it, to the plant. Overall, we have about 17 pump stations in the city. On the storm sewer side, we have a slightly smaller system with about 1,100 miles of pipeline. Very similar to the sanitary sewer system, we collect all of the stormwater runoff through inlets, curb and gutters, and then all of that water will be collected and then eventually will be discharged into surrounding waters via outfalls. Once a while, when we have a low ground area, or if we have a levee, we also need to put a pump station there to lift that water up and pump it over the levee. So overall, we have 31 pump stations in the city. So our main goal, the main goal for our programs are three things. The first is we want to ensure that there will be enough adequate capacity so that we can support the economic development. And this is done in accordance to the 2040 general plan. And also, at the same time, we focus on system rehabilitation and minimize the infrastructure backlog. So we are doing that so that we can lower the operational costs. We can ensure capacity and minimize the SSO in our system, and also improve system reliability. And lastly, we always need to stay in compliance with all of the regulatory agency requirements, like the municipal regional permit, as well as the consent decree from Baykeeper. So let's take a look at our funding needs at a high level for the sanitary sewer system and storm sewer system. On the sanitary sewer system, the current funding is adequate for ongoing maintenance work as well as small capital projects. However, more funding will be needed in the next 3 to 5 years and thereafter. And this is to address all of the critical projects that we have on our plan to address, future demand, as well as to keep up with the aging of our system. On the storm sewer system, on the other hand, during the last few years, we were able to invest into a lot of big projects, like the large trash capture device, Phase 6 and Phase 7, the River Oaks, big project there, and recently also the Chacot Avenue area drainage improvement, and also the small trash capture installation. We were able to do all of this using the funding from Measure T, some of the grants that we apply with the federal and state level, and also by reallocation of our funding to support these big projects. However, going forward, these fundings will be diminished. It's not easy to get, so we definitely will have to look into another way to identify new funding source to support our program. So let's look at the funding needs for our sanitary sewers system. We identify a few big projects. The Interceptor Phase 7 is one of them. This is part of the multi-decade, multi-million dollars program that we started over 20 years ago. And we are at Phase 7, which is the last phase of the program. In this project, we want to add the third interceptor into our system, which will allow enough capacity to support the wet weather and also the future growth in the city. And also it allows us to shut down one of the big interceptors during the dry season so that we can do repair or maintenance work if need to. This Phase 7 will be delivered in 2 packages, and it will be done in the next 5 to 7 years. And then concurrently, Master Plan also identify a series of projects, and these are also capacity improvement projects based on General Plan 2040, and it needs to be in place by or around 2040, so we have a little bit more time on that. The total costs for these projects come to about $122 million total. And also we recognize an imminent need for more repair, replacement of our pump stations, as well as the soil bed and other structures along our interceptors. So these are, right now, we don't have the exact cost for all of them, but we are working with our consultant trying to do the assessment, and after that, they will be able to put together a scope and then the cost estimate for those projects. So, and these should be done within the next 5 to 10 years. And now we can take a look at the storm sewer funding needs. As mentioned before, on the storm sewer side, we are facing a large deficit in a way. So we definitely will need to develop a new funding mechanism to support our program. Right now, at the high level, we are seeing that we still need about $115 million to support regulatory requirements from the Baykeepers and also from MRP3. The funding here will be used for new large trash capture project as well as new GSI regional and green street projects. And then we also identify another list of capacity improvement projects, and this is based on master planning effort. They did the hydraulic analysis and modeling using computer, and they found that, yeah, at certain storm level, we will see certain level of flooding occurring in certain area. So with that, they were able to come up with the case or the scenario and the project to address that concern. And it come to about $800 million in total cost. And lastly, we also have very old storm pump station system in the city, as well as some deteriorating outfalls in the system. So we've been working with DOT, and we compile a list of pump stations that need to be repaired, rehabilitated. And also, we did the same thing with the outfall. So we have a long list of work to do. We will just need to work with our consultant to finalize that list, prioritize them, and further define the scope and the cost for those projects. So now let's take a look at the good stuff. So coming up are all of the projects that we have planned for or we deliver during last fiscal year. All of these projects were delivered by our public works staff, engineer staff, and also with the support from various departments, DOT, ESD, CMO, Budget Office. So I want to extend my gratitude to everyone working on these and make it happen. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Norm.
Thank you, Matthew. Chair Cohen, Committee. Norm Mascarenas, I'm the principal engineer that oversees the Transportation Hydraulic Services Division. I'll go over both the sanitary and storm highlights for 23-24. So one of the first projects that I want to highlight is the fourth major interceptor, Phase 7. As Matthew alluded to, this is a continuation. If you recall, we delivered the Phase 6. That was the large diameter pipe we bore underneath 101 down 4th Street. So this is a continuation. Staff put together a work plan where, again, as Matthew alluded to, we split it into 2 phases. Again, both of these runs are roughly about a mile long each. We'll be doing some rehabilitation of the 60-inch brick using CIPP, or cured in place liner. And then the other portion will be installing the polyvinyl chloride line reinforced concrete pipe. This is the 66-inch line using standard open cut methods. So again, cost, as Matthew alluded to, is again $50 million for both phases. So as part of our program as well, we have a pretty robust condition assessment and cast iron replacement project. So this past fiscal year, we've cleaned and video inspected 406 miles of sanitary sewer pipe. So this includes roughly about 100 miles from our partners in DOT. We completed also 6.4 miles of rehabilitation as part of the exfiltration abatement program. If you call, the exfiltration abatement program is where we have sanitary sewer pipe that is on top of our crosses in proximity or adjacent to the storm lines. So we've done 6.4 miles of rehabilitating that sanitary sewer line so we don't get sanitary flows going into our storm lines. And then additionally, we've also removed and replaced 2.2 miles of cast iron pipe. So our cast iron pipe inventory probably put in the 1950s, 1960s, and what we have found is the pipe essentially loses capacity, it tuberculates, and then we lose essentially capacity in the pipe, and we've had a robust program where we've gone in and replaced it. So we replaced with ductile iron pipe, so it is essentially more robust, more durable, and then essentially corrosion proof. So we go in and we essentially remove those pipes. And then we are looking to essentially finish that by 2025 of the known locations of our cast iron inventory. So then as part of our condition assessment, we'll go out, and if we find additional cast iron pipe, we'll go in, assess it, replace it, and do what we need to do to essentially to repair it. And then moving on to the sanitary sewer master plan. So to date, we've done 48 capacity projects, and then we continue to work on additional 6 capacity improvement projects. And then we awarded 3 most recently. And again, this is all part of phase 2. So then moving into phase 3, we again identified an additional 76 improvement projects, and this is that $122 million that Matthew referred to. So I think one of the things that we need to do moving forward is, again, to update the model, recalibrate it. We're constantly doing flow monitoring, and then we're also looking at the development projects that come into the city, as well as to make sure, again, as we know it meets the 2040 GP as well as the land use. So we need to make sure that there's sufficient capacity within the system. The other thing that we're doing is we're looking at stormwater intrusion and groundwater infiltration and how it impacts the model. So again, we refer to this as I&I. So again, we want to try to limit and tighten up our sanitary sewer system so we don't have stormwater or groundwater in the pipes. Essentially, you're sending it to the plant and you're making the plant treat stormwater. So again, we'll tighten that up, and then we'll see what the impacts that it has on the system. So moving forward, we'll look at some of the storm highlights for 23-24. One of the projects we want to take a look at is the River Oaks Stormwater Capture Project, roughly about $12.5 million in total funding. It was funded by Measure T and state grants. For scope, this was a retrofit of an existing pump station and detention basin, and essentially we installed a bioretention facility on it. So now essentially what we can do is we can treat stormwater, and then before it gets pumped into the Guadalupe. So we had construction start in September of 2023. We're looking to get beneficial use by this month, and this is one of our key mark projects, and one of the ones we can be really proud of in terms of one of the first regional facilities of its kind. Kelly Regional Stormwater Capture Project. Again, this is smaller in size. It's $3 million in total cost, and we also utilized Measure T funding and state grants. This is located in Kelly Park. What we did with this one, the scope of this, is we took some extra parkland, and then we also put a bioretention facility in it, and we were able to look at the neighboring collection system for the storm, and then we were able to route the stormwater through this bioretention, which at the end of the day outfalls into the creek. So again, we're trying to clean the water from these stormwater conveyance systems before it hits the creek. So that's super important for us. We're currently in design. We hope to bid out this project by 2025 and start construction next year in wintertime. And then moving forward to the Charcot Storm Drain Improvement. Again, this was one of the larger projects, line share Measure T funding at $25 million. Scope of the project includes we're going to do some tunnel boring. This is large diameter reinforced concrete pipe open cut installation. So again, one of the things it'll do, it'll address some of the low-lying ground elevations. In the North San Jose, and more specifically in the Charcot area, we do have some localized flooding, as well as some, I want to say we have some capacity challenges with the storm system. Additionally, what this project is doing for us is allowing us to reroute stormwater from the Coyote Basin to the Guadalupe, and then essentially we would be pumping it to the Rincon 2 pump station. So that kind of builds in some reliability as well as some redundancy, and then hopefully we can address some of this localized flooding that we experienced in the past. The contract was executed in August, and then we are starting construction this December with hopefully a beneficial use in 2025 of fall. Moving on to the large trash capture phase 7. So again, this is as part of the regional stormwater permit mandated for the trash load reduction. This project is currently in construction. We leveraged Caltrans funding, roughly about $9 million. There's 6 locations, and you can see from the photo essentially what these large trash capture vault devices are. They remove a lot of the debris and refuse that come through the storm drains, and then essentially we partner with our DOT maintenance folks, and they can vector all this debris out. I think another benefit that these facilities provide is the removal of the polycarbonate biphenyls, or the PCBs, which is again mandated as part of the stormwater regional permit. Moving on, so the small trash capture device is a kind of smaller in scale to the large trash capture. This one, we were able to scrape together some money and put it in the storm capital funds, and roughly about $3.1 million. So again, these devices are being installed in the storm inlets as well as manholes, and kind of functions in a same way as the large capture, but in a smaller fashion in terms of we'll be able to catch some of the debris and refuse that come in through the storm drains. And again, we looked at the high trash generating areas throughout the city to install these, and I think we were installing roughly about 500 units. We completed the design last fiscal year. We had some challenges for the bidding, but we were able to get a contractor on board, and we'll start construction this December. So as for the storm drain master plan, so as Matthew alluded to, we identified some high priority projects. It's a large dollar amount, $818 million. I think what we need to do is continually refine the model, and then we'll look at the land use, hydraulic information. We'll look at the rain gauges, water depth tables, and those type of things to, again, improve our high priority projects. I think one of the near-term goals that we need to do is kind of similar to what we have in a sanitary sewer, where we have an all-pipe network. So we've actually, in our model, down to 6, 8, 10s, and 12-inch pipes. So our model today for our storm goes down to 24 inches and greater. So what we want to do is also be able to model the 10s, 12s, 15s, and 20-inch lines that we do have in our storm system. So then that'll, again, allow us to redelineate the watersheds and then look at our projects again and then further assess them and then, optimize them for the recommended improvements. So that's going to be important for us moving forward. And then lastly, our annual 23-24 winter storm prep. So again, coordinating a lot with Valley Water, with other agencies such as PG&E and the National Weather Service. And shout out and thanks to Public Works Facilities and DOT for some of the pump station maintenance. There's a lot of work that is done by the DOT maintenance in coordination with Public Works to have Charcot temporary pumps out, because again, we know that there is localized flooding in this area, so every year we have pumps brought out to this location. And then a lot of work is done by DOT in terms of storm inlet cleaning, the debris basins, and then making sure that we have equipment ready at a moment's notice in the event that we do have large events and we do have localized flooding, that we can move around our pumps and facilities such that we can kind of minimize the flooding. And then we also have our storm monitoring through our Public Works and DOCs. Again, looking at things, monitoring the storms as they roll into the bay and go over the city of San Jose, looking at the levels of the creek, of the river waters from Upper and Lower Penitencia, Coyote, and Guadalupe, and then also providing a hand in terms of identifying some of the unhoused that live in some of the waterways and getting them out in safety before we have large storm events. So then incident management, it's a lot of collaboration. Whenever we do have events, then we coordinate with DOT. If we need to close a street, we sandbag, and then if you need to bring out the temporary pumping, and those type of things. So again, it's a big collaborative effort in terms of the prep. And again, we are doing it again for this year's storm prep. That kind of concludes our report for our sanitary storm collection and GSI report, and we're available for questions.
Thank you for the report on this important topic. Do we have any members of the public? It looks like we lost them also.
No request to speak.
All right. Any comments from the committee? I'm going to just ask one question. Well, first of all, I'm just going to say I'm excited for the opening of the River Oaks GSI facility, I think sometime in the next month. I'm looking forward to some kind of event out there to cut the ribbon. Just a question about the storm sewer funding. Does Prop 4 provide any funding for that kind of project, do you think?
We haven't received any funding from Prop 4.
Well, Prop 4 just passed, so yeah, I'm just wondering whether, maybe we don't know yet what kind of projects will be eligible under that.
I'll make sure that we take a look at that and include this as one of the possibilities. I don't think it's super high on the list, but I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah, not the kind of thing voters were excited about, huh?
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah. All right, do we have a motion to accept the report?
So moved. Second.
All right, let's vote. All right, the motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much. Again, I don't think any members of the public here for open forum, so back to the committee. I'm just going to also, before we adjourn, I want to thank Councilmember Davis for her years of service on this committee. I'm not sure if this is the first, but close to the first of the lasts you'll have this month but last time serving on this committee, she was my predecessor as chair of this committee, and certainly has been a good partner on environmental and issues that related to this committee. So I want to thank you for your service. And with that, we are adjourned at 3:44 p.m.